Some people live their entire lives without facing a single great loss. John Travolta has faced it again and again, in the most painful way a human heart can endure. We know him as the charming star from Grease and Saturday Night Fever. The smile, the dancing, the confidence. But behind all of that, behind the public light, was a private life shaped by quiet heartbreak. He didn't just lose one person he loved. He didn't just lose two. He lost three to the same disease. And he lost his son in a way no parent should ever have to face. Yet somehow, he is still standing, still loving, still living. This is not a story about Hollywood. This is a story about a man who kept choosing love after life kept taking it away. Let's begin. Some stories don't begin with fame. They begin with loss and the courage to survive it. John Travolta is a name many people know, mostly because of his movies, dance, and charm. But behind the smiling face and the bright spotlight, there is a man who has felt pain that most people never experience in their entire life. This story is not about Hollywood lights or red carpets. It is about a human being who kept moving forward even when life tried to stop him again and again. Before talking about the details, it is important to understand the tone of this story. This is not written to judge, gossip, or dig into someone's private life for entertainment. It is written with respect, care, and understanding. Grief is something almost every person in the world will face at some point. But some people face it in repeated waves, with no chance to breathe or recover before the next one begins. John Travolta is one of those people. When we watch someone on screen, we often forget they have real lives. We see roles, characters, and performances, not the person who exists behind them. Actors smile even when they are hurting. They perform even when their hearts feel heavy. Their job does not stop just because their world is falling apart. John has lived many moments like that, moments where he had to appear strong even when he was breaking inside. This story is also about love. Love that lifted him, shaped him, and gave him reasons to keep living. But love also became the source of his deepest pain. He did not just lose people he cared for. He lost people who were the center of his world, and each time he had to learn again how to stand up after being knocked down. There is something important to notice in his journey. He never tried to pretend that pain did not affect him. He did not hide behind anger or bitterness. Instead, he let himself feel, and slowly, step by step, he tried to understand what grief meant in his life. This is what makes his story meaningful. It is not just about what he faced, but about how he carried it. Many people look at him and see a strong man, but strength is not just about being tough. Sometimes, strength is simply continuing to wake up every morning, taking care of those you love, and trying to live a normal life, even when your heart feels heavy. John has shown that kind of strength again and again throughout his life. And it is this quiet strength that makes his story something others can learn from. He did not know how heavy the road ahead would be. Life changes without warning. His journey shows that success does not protect anyone from pain. It helps us see him as a real person. But to understand the depth of his resilience, we must start before the heartbreak ever began. Before the world knew his name, John Travolta was just a shy kid chasing a dream bigger than himself. He was born in New Jersey in 1954, the youngest of 6 siblings. His home was full of music, laughter, and creativity. His mother, Helen, played a very important role in shaping who he would become. She had been an actress and singer when she was younger, and she believed deeply in the power of the performing arts. Helen later worked as a drama and English teacher, and the stage was always a familiar place in their household. She encouraged all her children to explore acting, singing, and dancing, and John especially seemed drawn to it. He was sensitive, emotional, and expressive, and Helen knew exactly how to guide him. She was the first person who told him he could be something special. John was not the loud or popular kid in school. He was quiet and sometimes felt like he did not fit in. But when he performed, everything changed. He felt confident, alive, and understood. By the age of 16, he knew he wanted to take acting seriously. So, he made a bold decision that most young people would be too afraid to make. He left high school and moved to New York City to follow his dream. It was not easy. New York was fast, crowded, and full of competition. But John did not give up. He worked small jobs, took acting classes, and auditioned whenever he could. His hard work soon paid off. He landed roles in stage productions, including parts in Grease and Over. Here, on Broadway. These early performances helped him build confidence and real experience. The stage taught him timing, expression, and how to connect with an audience. He was young, energetic, and hopeful, and for the first time, it felt like his dream was possible. Then, his life took a big step forward when he moved to Hollywood. There, he auditioned for a new TV show called Welcome Back, Kotter. He was cast as Vinnie Barbarino, the charming, slightly rebellious student who became one of the most memorable characters on the show. His smile, voice, and style made him instantly popular. People across the country began to recognize him. This show did not just make him famous, it launched him into national attention almost overnight. But his rise did not stop there. In 1977, John starred in Saturday Night Fever, the movie that turned him into a worldwide sensation. His powerful dance scenes and emotional performance made the film iconic. Audiences saw passion, talent, and something very real in him. He was nominated for an Academy Award, and the soundtrack became one of the best-selling in history. Just 1 year later, Grease was released. As Danny Zuko, John became a symbol of cool confidence and youthful love. The film was a massive success, and songs like You're the One That I Want and Summer Nights made him a cultural figure known across generations. During this time, John's spirit was full of joy and excitement. He was young and living his dream. Fame had arrived faster than he ever imagined. He traveled, met fans, performed, and experienced the bright side of success. He was hopeful, enthusiastic, and open-hearted. Most of all, he still carried the warmth and influence of his mother, Helen, who had always believed in him. His life seemed full of possibility, and it looked like everything was moving forward in the best way possible. He had no way of knowing what was coming next. Life was about to introduce him to a love that felt deep and real, the kind of love that changes a person forever. And then, at the height of rising stardom, love walked onto the set, disguised in a role no one expected. Sometimes love arrives like destiny, and sometimes it leaves like a storm. During the time when John Travolta was becoming famous, he accepted a role in a made-for-TV movie called The Boy in the Plastic Bubble. The story was emotional, and the filming process brought together a cast that needed strong on-screen chemistry. Among the actors was Diana Hyland, who played the role of his mother in the film. Diana was 41 years old, experienced in both life and acting. John was only 23, still growing, still learning. Their age difference did not matter once they started talking. There was a natural connection between them that surprised everyone, including themselves. Diana had a calm, warm presence, and John felt understood by her in a way he had never felt before. It was not a fast romance or something built on appearances. It was something deep, emotional, and immediate. The two spent long hours together on set, talking between scenes, sharing stories, dreams, and fears. John later said that he had thought he had been in love before, but when he met Diana, he realized this was something else entirely. She brought him balance and maturity. She knew how to listen in a way that made him feel seen. He brought her joy and renewed energy. Their relationship grew quickly, but not in a chaotic way. It felt natural, as if life had quietly pushed them toward each other. They began spending more time together off-set. They talked about living together. They talked about the future. Marriage did not feel impossible or too soon. They were sure about how they felt. John introduced her to people close to him, and many noticed how happy he looked. Diana had already been through many things in her life, and that experience helped John feel steady. He trusted her. She encouraged his growth, but also reminded him to stay grounded. She supported him not just as a partner, but as a person who wanted to see him grow, not just shine. For a young man whose life was filled suddenly with fame, cameras, and attention, this kind of love was like a safe corner of the world. They looked at houses together, thinking about the life they were going to build. It wasn't just talk. They were making real plans. But something was happening in Diana's body that neither of them truly expected to return. A few years before she met John, she had been treated for breast cancer and had surgery. At the time, she believed the worst was over. She believed she had survived it. But during the months after they began dating, the cancer came back. When she began to feel unwell again, they tried to stay hopeful. They wanted to believe they still had time. But this time, the cancer was spreading faster. Doctors explained that treatment options were limited. For Diana, the reality became clearer as her health declined. For John, the idea of losing her felt unthinkable. He was still so young, still discovering life, and suddenly he was being asked to prepare, as if time was running out. While John was filming Saturday Night Fever, Diana's health weakened even more. He flew back to Los Angeles regularly to be with her. No matter how busy filming was, work no longer mattered. The world no longer felt big. His focus was on her, on being present, on not letting her go through anything alone. Diana did not know she was dying until the final weeks. When the truth became clear, they did not waste time on denial. They spent the days together quietly, talking, holding each other, and simply being there. On the 27th of March, 1977, while John was holding her in his arms, Diana passed away. He later explained that he felt her final breath leave her body. That moment stayed with him forever. He was only 23 years old, experiencing a loss that changes the structure of a person's heart. For weeks after her death, he felt like the world was muted. He walked, ate, worked, and spoke, but everything felt heavy. He could not understand why life would bring such a meaningful love only to take it away so soon. He had not expected to learn heartbreak at an age where most people are only just beginning to understand what love even means. This loss shaped him. It didn't just bring sadness, it brought maturity, emotional depth, and a different understanding of what it means to love someone. He had discovered a connection that made him feel whole, and then he had lost it. People around him said he had changed, not in a bad way, but in a quiet way. Something inside him was now more serious, more thoughtful, more aware of how fragile life can be. At 23, when most people are busy planning their future, John was learning how to survive a pain he had not been prepared for. He did not have the tools to deal with such a heavy grief, but he tried to move forward. He kept working, he kept living, and he tried to carry the love he had experienced instead of letting it fade. He later said that his time with Diana was one of the happiest and most meaningful periods of his life, even though it ended too soon. It stayed with him and influenced him for years. What he didn't know was that this was only the beginning of cancer's shadow in his life. Some wounds don't even have time to heal before new ones begin to form. After losing Diana, John Travolta was left in a state that is hard to describe. He was young, famous, and surrounded by attention from the world, but inside, he felt empty and confused. People around him saw success, but he felt the weight of grief every day. He tried to return to work and continue his career, because that was the only thing he knew how to do. But even while filming new roles, his mind kept returning to moments he shared with Diana. He would remember her voice, her laughter, and the way she made him feel understood. Nothing else filled the space she once held. He was searching quietly for meaning, trying to understand how life could allow happiness and pain to exist so close together. During this time, John leaned heavily on his family, especially his mother, Helen. She had always been his emotional foundation. She was the one who believed in his talent, encouraged him to follow his dreams, and was proud of everything he had become. Helen was strong, warm, and protective. She knew how fragile John was after Diana's death, and she wanted to help him recover at his own pace. But while she was trying to hold him up, she was hiding a painful truth of her own. Helen had been diagnosed with breast cancer. She chose not to tell John right away because she didn't want to add more pain to the grief he was already struggling with. She had just watched her son lose the woman he deeply loved. She saw how broken and quiet he became. She understood the kind of emotional shock he was living inside. She didn't want to take him through that again so soon, so she held her illness privately, hoping for time, treatment, maybe even recovery. But cancer does not wait for anyone. Slowly, her condition worsened. Her strength began to fade. Eventually, the family had to tell John. When he found out, it felt like his world broke open again. He was still trying to stand up from the last heartbreak, and now he had to face another. But this time, something changed in him. Instead of falling apart, he stepped forward. He became the caregiver. He visited his mother as often as possible. He sat next to her, talked to her, brought her comfort in the smallest ways. He tried to be strong for her the way she had always been strong for him. Helen had been a teacher most of her life. Even in her final days, she continued to teach John something. She showed him how to face pain with courage. She showed him how to love someone fully while knowing time is limited. She showed him how to hold on and let go at the same time. John would sing for her, just small songs, warm songs. He would perform bits of dance routines, tell her stories, or simply sit in silence while holding her hand. He was not acting for cameras. He was just a son trying to bring light to his mother's darkest moments. To him, she was not just a parent. She was the person who shaped his identity. Losing her felt like losing the ground beneath his feet. In December of 1978, Helen passed away at the age of 66, and once again, cancer had taken someone John deeply loved. The pain didn't feel new this time. It felt familiar, like a wound that had been reopened in the same exact place. It was almost unbearable to believe that the same disease had stolen two of the most important women from his life in less than 2 years. This loss affected John in a different way than Diana's death. When Diana passed, he lost love. When Helen passed, he lost his foundation. It changed his emotional balance. It changed how he viewed life, relationships, fame, and himself. He felt older, even though he was still young. He felt tired, even though his career was growing. He felt like life was showing him both the height of success and the depth of sadness at the same time. People around him saw a rising star, but inside, he was trying simply to keep going. He kept working, not because he was running away from grief, but because he needed something to hold on to. Acting gave him structure when everything else felt uncertain. However, grief is not something that just ends. It stays and shapes how a person lives. John carried both losses with him. He learned how to move forward, but the memories and the emotions never disappeared. They lived in him and became a part of his story, influencing how he loved, how he trusted, and how he understood the world. For a while, life settled into a slow, careful rhythm. He focused on his work. He tried to rebuild his emotional balance. He slowly found moments of laughter again. But life does not always give long breaks between storms, and just as life seemed to steady itself for him, another storm was approaching. The world sees fame. It rarely sees the loneliness that can follow it. After the success of Saturday Night Fever and Grease, John Travolta was one of the biggest stars in the world. His face was everywhere. People recognized him on the street, asked for autographs, and talked about his performances. From the outside, it looked like he had everything a person could want. But inside, he was still carrying the weight of losing Diana and his mother. Grief does not stop just because cameras are flashing. As the late 1,970 seconds turned into the 1,980 seconds, the culture around him began to change. The disco era, which had played a major part in his rise to fame, started to fade. New styles, new trends, and new stars began to appear. The roles that John was offered were not as strong as before. Some movies did not do well at the box office. Critics began to question whether his success had only been temporary. Articles appeared saying that his career might be over. People in the industry who once chased him now looked elsewhere. This kind of decline can be very hard for any actor. But for John, it was especially difficult because it came right after so much personal pain. When someone is grieving, they look for stability and meaning. But instead of stability, his work life became shaky. Instead of comfort, he faced public judgment from people who did not know what he was going through. Fame can give attention, but it does not give comfort. It cannot hug you when you need support. It cannot sit with you when you feel lost. John continued to work, but acting did not feel the same. He was doing his job, but his heart felt tired. The pressure of the industry, the expectations of the public, and his personal emotional exhaustion made everything feel heavier. People saw him smiling in interviews, posing for photos, and performing on camera, but they did not see the loneliness that waited for him afterward. Many people think fame brings happiness, but fame often isolates. It puts a person on a pedestal, separated from others. And when a person is already hurting, that separation can feel even deeper. He tried to stay hopeful, but there were days when he wondered what direction his life was supposed to take. The dreams that once felt exciting now felt distant. His confidence was shaken. He was not the same carefree young man he had been during Grease and Saturday Night Fever. Life had changed him. But even in this period of uncertainty, he did not give up on himself. He kept searching for something meaningful, something that would make him feel alive again. It was during this time of quiet struggle that life slowly began to shift again. Healing does not happen quickly or clearly. It comes in small pieces, through small changes, through the simple act of continuing to live. John did not know it yet, but something good was coming. He was going to meet someone who would bring warmth, laughter, and a new beginning into his life. Someone who would help him open his heart again, after it had been broken more than once. Someone who would become his partner in every part of life. But love has a way of returning when we least expect it. Sometimes the heart finds its way back to the light. After years of emotional pain and career uncertainty, John Travolta met someone who would change the direction of his life. In 1988, while filming a comedy movie called The Experts, he met actress Kelly Preston. Kelly was warm, kind, full of humor, and had a gentle confidence that made people feel comfortable around her. She was different from the world John had been surrounded by. She didn't treat him like a movie star. She treated him like a person. Their connection did not happen overnight, but it was natural and steady. They laughed easily together. They enjoyed each other's presence. Kelly understood the emotional history that John carried with him, and she did not run from it. Instead, she accepted it and accepted him. For John, this acceptance felt healing. It allowed him to slowly open the parts of his heart that had been shut down by grief. Kelly brought brightness into his life again, the kind of simple joy that comes from feeling safe with someone. Their relationship grew stronger, and after some time, they decided to get married. The wedding was held in Paris, in a quiet, private ceremony. They didn't need a huge event or media attention. They just needed each other. The marriage felt like a fresh beginning, not only emotionally but also spiritually. They shared dreams, supported each other's careers, and built a home filled with warmth and understanding. Kelly was not just John's wife. She became his partner, his best friend, and his source of comfort. In 1992, their joy expanded when they welcomed their first child, a son named Jet. Becoming a father changed John deeply. He had always valued family, but now he understood love in a new way. He was no longer just living for himself. Jet was cheerful, affectionate, and loving. He brought energy into their home, and John was very close to him. He made sure to spend time with him, to be present, and to be a supportive, caring father. 2 years later, in 2000, John and Kelly welcomed a daughter, Ella Blue. Her arrival completed their family in a beautiful way. She had her mother's warmth and her father's gentle nature. John loved being a father. He would bring the kids along on travels, movie sets, and vacations. He always tried to make sure his family came before work. He had known what it felt like to lose important people, so he valued every moment he had with his children. Years later, in 2010, their family grew again when they welcomed their youngest son, Benjamin. His arrival brought a renewed feeling of joy and healing into their home. After the loss they had once faced, Benjamin felt like a miracle, a new chapter, and a blessing. John often talked about how this child brought light back into their lives during a time they needed it most. During these years, John felt happiness in a way that was full and real. He was not just a movie star, he was a husband and a father. His home was filled with laughter, noise, play, and everyday moments that mattered more than anything fame could offer. He cooked meals, told bedtime stories, and spent quiet hours watching TV with his family. These were the things that healed him. These were the moments that helped him rebuild himself from the inside. Kelly also supported John emotionally and professionally. They worked together in some films, and she stood by him during the ups and downs of his career. She believed in him, and that belief mattered. It helped him feel stable and grounded. Their relationship was not perfect, like any marriage, but it was strong because it was built on care, respect, and deep love. For John, this period of his life felt like the gift he had been waiting for. After losing so much during his younger years, he was now living in a home filled with love and connection. He had a partner who shared his life, children who gave him meaning, and a daily routine that felt peaceful and meaningful. For the first time in a long time, his life felt full, not just professionally, but emotionally and personally. But life does not promise that joy will stay untouched. Even the strongest families can face challenges they never expect. And sometimes, the hardest pain comes not from losing a partner, but from watching your child suffer. But life still held a trial no parent should ever face. Some losses break the world in half. John and Kelly's first child, Jet, was born in 1992. From the beginning, Jet was a loving and gentle child. He smiled easily, laughed freely, and showed affection openly. He had a pure and warm presence that made people feel calm around him. But as he began to grow, John and Kelly noticed that he developed differently than other children. He was diagnosed with autism, and he also suffered from seizures. The condition affected his daily life and required constant care and attention. John and Kelly did not hide or avoid the situation. They accepted it with love. Their home was built around patience, understanding, and support. They learned how to recognize the signs of an oncoming seizure, how to comfort him during one, and how to help him recover afterward. They made sure he was surrounded by people who cared for him with kindness. Jet was never treated like a burden. He was the heart of their family. The three of them spent a lot of time together. John often brought Jet with him during travels. They would take long walks, swim together, and watch simple TV shows that made Jet laugh. John adjusted his life to make sure Jet felt safe and loved. He wanted Jet to grow in a world where he felt valued and understood. Their connection was strong. People who knew the family often said, You could clearly see how deeply John loved his son. Jet was not just his child. Jet was his friend. In early January of 2009, the family traveled to the Bahamas to take a vacation. They had gone before and felt comfortable there. They stayed at a private home in a quiet resort area. It was meant to be a calm and happy family trip. Jet had a history of seizures that appeared every few days, so the family always took precautions. They had 2 nannies traveling with them. They kept doors monitored, bathrooms checked, and made sure Jet was always watched closely. On the morning of January 2nd, everything changed. Jet went into the bathroom, and during that time, he experienced a seizure. These seizures often caused sudden loss of control. During the seizure, he fell and hit his head on the bathtub. The injury was severe. When the nanny found him unresponsive, she immediately called for help. John and Kelly were alerted and rushed to him. John reached him first. As soon as he saw his son, he knew something was terribly wrong. He began CPR. He pressed, his hands on his son's chest, breathing and pushing, trying to bring him back. He did not stop. He tried again and again. He was a father fighting to keep his child alive. But there are moments in life where everything we do is not enough. When the emergency team arrived, they continued trying to revive Jet, but it was too late. Jet was gone. He was only 16 years old. There are no words that can explain what happens inside a parent in that moment. A parent is not built to outlive their child. When a child dies, something inside the parent breaks in a way that never fully heals. For John and Kelly, the loss was unbearable. Jet had been their joy, their daily light, and suddenly, that light was gone. The days that followed were heavy and quiet. The family was heartbroken, confused, and in disbelief. They had already known grief before, but this was different. This loss was not just emotional, it was physical. The house felt different. The silence felt louder. There were reminders of Jet everywhere, his laughter, his routines, his favorite spots in the house, his toys, his clothes. Every memory became sharp. John tried to be strong, but inside, he was broken. His heart had been touched by loss when he lost Diana and his mother. But losing Jet was like losing a part of himself. He once said that Jet had given their home life, energy, and love. Without him, the world felt cold. As the family tried to grieve quietly, something unexpected and painful happened. An ambulance driver and a former Bahamian senator attempted to extort John and Kelly for money. They threatened to release private details about Jet's death unless they were paid millions of dollars. The family, in the middle of grief, now had to deal with legal pressure and public attention. John had to testify in court while still mourning his son. The trial pulled them back into the pain again and again. Eventually, John withdrew from the case to protect his family from further damage. But the emotional harm had already been done. The loss of Jet stayed with John every day. He did not speak loudly about it. He did not try to hide it either. He simply carried it quietly, the way people carry the deepest kinds of pain. After some time, John and Kelly welcomed a new child, Benjamin, in 2010. His arrival brought joy into the home again. Not a replacement, not a fill for the space Jet left, but a new chapter that allowed love to grow again in spaces that grief had touched. Benjamin helped the family feel life again, step by step. But life does not always stop after one tragedy. Sometimes it waits, silent, holding another challenge for later. And just when healing seemed possible, tragedy took a darker turn. Grief is one thing, exploitation is another. After losing Jet, John and Kelly were already in the deepest pain they had ever known. They were trying to hold their family together, stay private, and simply breathe through each day. But instead of being given space and compassion, they were met with something cruel and unexpected. An ambulance driver who had responded that day, along with a former senator from the Bahamas, tried to use the tragedy for money. They threatened to release private medical information about Jet's death unless John paid them a large amount of money. It was not just a request, it was blackmail. For parents already struggling to accept the loss of their child, this was a shock that added a new layer of emotional pain. Losing Jet had been heartbreaking, but being forced to defend that loss in public and seeing it used as a tool for financial gain made the situation almost unbearable. John had to step into a courtroom and listen to strangers discuss one of the most painful moments of his life in a formal, public setting. The tragedy was no longer personal. It was being pulled into the open, judged, questioned, and examined. The trial drew media attention. Cameras, reporters, headlines, articles, everyone talked about it. But very few understood how hard it was for John and Kelly to simply sit there. People could discuss legal issues and financial motives, but for John, the nightmare was simple. He had to relive the day his son died, over and over, in front of others. He had to answer questions. He had to describe details. He had to listen to lawyers repeat words that cut deep. He had to see the moment of loss become part of public conversation. This was not just stress, it was emotional damage. The wound that had barely started to close was opened again. After months of this painful legal struggle, John made a decision. He withdrew from the case. He did not want his family to go through the trial any longer. He didn't want Jet's memory to be tied to courtrooms and legal documents. He said that continuing was hurting everyone, and he needed to protect his family's emotional well-being, so he stepped back, even though stepping back meant the case did not reach a final legal judgment. Some people questioned the decision. But for John, it was simple. His priority was not revenge, punishment, or proving a point. His priority was protecting the memories of his son and the aching hearts of his family. He did not want to carry more bitterness. He wanted to try to heal. When the trial ended, the family tried to return to normal life. But grief does not end just because the news stops talking about it. The loss stayed. The trauma stayed. The quiet sadness stayed. John focused on being present for Kelly, for Ella, and especially for Benjamin, who was still young and needed warmth and stability. It seemed like life was slowly settling again. Not perfectly, not fully, but enough for the family to keep moving forward, one day at a time. But the darkest echo of his past was still waiting in silence. Not every battle is fought in public. While the world saw John Travolta smiling on red carpets, traveling with his children, and doing interviews, something heavy was happening quietly inside his home. In 2018, Kelly Preston received a diagnosis that would change everything. She had breast cancer, the same disease that had taken Diana Hyland and John's mother, Helen. But this time, the family chose a different path. They decided to keep it private. Kelly did not want the world to watch her fight. She did not want interviews, news stories, or sympathy messages filling their lives. She wanted to live normally for as long as she could. She wanted to continue being a mother, a wife, and a friend without her illness becoming her identity. And John supported her completely. They agreed to share the truth only with those who needed to know. The outside world continued to see photos of smiling family vacations and birthday celebrations, while inside the home, a quiet struggle was taking place every day. Kelly began treatment at MD Anderson Cancer Center in Houston, one of the most respected cancer hospitals in the world. She went through chemotherapy, radiation, and other medical NDWSNO procedures. Some days were hopeful, some days were extremely difficult. The treatments affected her energy and strength, but she kept her spirits gentle and warm. She still cared for her children, still talked with John, still tried to live with love instead of fear. She never wanted her illness to overshadow her family's life. John understood what was happening more deeply than most spouses would. He had been through this before. He had watched cancer take people he loved. He had watched it change the atmosphere of a home. He understood the emotional weight and the slow, painful uncertainty that comes with every new test, every doctor visit, every quiet night, full of worry. But this time, the pain felt heavier because Kelly was his partner, the person he had built his world with. He tried to protect his children from the full reality of the situation. He did not lie to them, but he tried to make their days feel normal. He cooked for them, played with them, watched movies with them, and tried to keep their lives gentle and steady. He knew that every normal day was a gift. Ella was older and understood more than she said. Benjamin was still young and needed reassurance that everything would be okay. John carried the responsibility of holding the emotional weight for everyone. During this time, John was not acting in films very often. His focus was on home. He has always believed that family comes first, and now more than ever, he lived by that belief. He spent time at the hospital, supported Kelly through treatments, and made sure she never felt alone. When she had energy, they would enjoy small things together, talking in the living room, sitting outside, listening to music, or just holding hands quietly. These little moments became the most important moments. Kelly fought her illness with strength and dignity. She did not complain. She did not give up. She faced each day with calm acceptance, focusing on love more than fear. But cancer does not always respond to courage. Slowly, her body weakened. The treatments became harder. The hopeful moments became fewer. The illness continued to spread, and eventually, the doctors could no longer slow its progression. On the 12th of July 2020, Kelly passed away at the age of 57. John later wrote that she fought a courageous fight with the love and support of those closest to her. He thanked the doctors, nurses, and everyone who helped them during her treatment. His message was simple and quiet, full of love. He did not write long explanations. He did not share personal details. He just honored her. For John, it was a devastating loss. He had once again lost someone who filled his life with love, and the pain of this loss was tied to every past loss he had experienced. The same disease that had taken Diana's life and then his mother's was now taking his wife's. It was like watching history repeat itself in the most painful way. This grief was not loud. It was not dramatic. It was the kind that sits deep, inside a person, and changes the way they breathe. After Kelly's passing, John took time away from everything. He stepped back from the public eye. His only focus was his children. He wanted to help them understand, process, and heal the way they needed to. He knew the world would want statements, interviews, and explanations, but he refused to let his family become a public conversation. He protected their grief the same way Kelly had protected her illness. John once explained something about grief that came from this experience. He said that when someone is grieving, they are already carrying a heavy emotional weight. If too many people try to bring their sadness to the person, it becomes overwhelming. It is like two boats sinking together. No one is helped. This insight came from living through loss not once, but multiple times. For a long time after Kelly passed, the home became quiet. Not empty, but changed. John focused on Ella and Benjamin, helping them learn how to live with their mother's memory instead of her presence. He tried to show them that it is okay to cry, and also okay to laugh. That even in sadness, love does not disappear. But there were moments when the silence was heavy. Moments when he must have wondered how a person is meant to carry so many losses in one lifetime. The world saw a strong man. But strength is not about never breaking. It is about continuing to live, even when you have been broken many times. How do you keep living when life keeps taking? Grief is not something to escape. It is something to learn how to carry. After losing so many people he loved, John Travolta developed a way of understanding grief that came from experience, not theory. He once spoke about something he called emotional saturation. He explained that when someone is grieving, their heart is already full of sadness. When other people come to comfort them, they often bring their own sadness, their tears, their emotional weight. Even though it comes from love, it can become overwhelming. The grieving person ends up carrying not only their own pain, but also the pain of others around them, and that can make the healing process even harder. To describe this, he used a simple but powerful example. He said grief can feel like two boats sinking together. If one boat is sinking and another boat ties itself tightly to it, both will go down. In other words, if two people are drowning emotionally and they cling to each other too tightly, neither will find a way back to the surface. He believed that the best way to support someone in grief is to stand with them, not collapse with them. Give them space to breathe, to process, to feel. Allow them to walk through the pain at their own pace. Do not try to force healing. Do not try to rush it. Do not try to fill the silence with words. He learned that everyone grieves differently. Some people cry openly. Some people become quiet. Some talk about their pain, while others hold it inside. There is no right or wrong way. He believed that the most important thing is patience. The patience to let someone feel everything they need to feel, without judgment and without pressure. John also shared that time does not erase grief. Instead, it changes it. The pain does not disappear, but a person learns how to carry it more gently. It becomes part of who they are, part of how they see the world. Grief teaches us how to value love more deeply. It teaches us how to be more understanding, more present, more compassionate. He did not speak about grief as something tragic that destroys life. He spoke about it as something that shapes it. He believed that love remains even after loss, and that love continues to guide us forward. But grief is not where his story ends. Healing does not erase pain. It teaches us how to walk with it. After losing Kelly, John took time away from the spotlight. He wanted to be present for his children, especially for Ella and Benjamin. They were young, and the world had changed suddenly. John understood that grief does not move in a straight line. Some days are heavy, and some days feel lighter. So, he tried to guide his children gently, showing them that sadness and joy can exist together. As time passed, John and his children began finding small moments of happiness again. Ella continued to grow into her own life, exploring acting and music. John supported her the same way his mother once supported him. He encouraged her dreams, helped her practice, and reminded her that she didn't need to rush anything. Their bond became stronger, built on trust and shared memories of Kelly. Benjamin, who was still young, brought brightness and laughter into the house. His personality was lively and curious, and he liked to spend time outdoors and try new things. John made sure he never felt alone, always keeping him close and reminding him that life still had beautiful moments waiting for them. John also began doing something he had always loved: flying. He has been a licensed pilot for many years, and planes have always given him a sense of freedom. Flying allowed him to feel calm and in control, even when life felt unpredictable. He took trips with his children, not just for fun, but to make new memories together. They traveled to different places, explored cities, and enjoyed simple time away from the noise of the world. In 2024, John and Ella took a trip to Paris during the Olympics. They stayed in beautiful hotels, walked through museums, ate at restaurants, and watched sporting events. It was a chance to enjoy life again, to celebrate being together, and to see the world with fresh eyes. Friends who saw John during this time said he seemed lighter, more relaxed, more at peace. Not because he forgot his pain, but because he learned how to live with it without letting it control him. John now focuses on living life in a way that honors the people he lost. He does not try to pretend the pain is gone. He simply chooses not to let it stop him from loving the days he still has. He shares photos of his children, spends time with friends, and enjoys quiet moments. He understands that grief can stay, but joy can stay too. He once said that if he were to leave the world tomorrow, he would not want the people who love him to be filled only with sadness. He would want them to remember laughter, memories, and love. This belief guides the way he lives today. Every trip, every shared meal, every conversation, every moment matters. At 70 years old, John is not the same man he was when he danced across screens. He is softer, wiser, and more aware of the value of time. His story is one of heartbreak, yes, but it is also one of survival, love, and quiet strength. And now the question remains, what comes next? Maybe this story is not just his. Maybe it's ours. When we look at John Travolta's life, we see someone who has faced more loss than most people can imagine. Yet, we also see someone who continues to love, continues to give, and continues to live. His story reminds us that grief does not mean the end of life. It means life changes. It means we learn to carry memories, not forget them. It means love does not disappear when someone is gone. It stays with us, shaping who we become. The lesson in his journey is simple but powerful. Love outlasts loss. The people we lose do not leave our hearts. They stay in our stories, our habits, our laughter, the way we remember them when certain songs play or certain moments happen. They live inside us in quiet ways. And even when the pain is heavy, love is still stronger. If you have lost someone, if you have ever felt the kind of grief that makes the world feel different, know that you are not alone. Everyone carries something. Everyone has moments where their heart feels heavy. You don't have to rush your healing. You don't have to pretend to be okay. You just have to keep living, slowly, gently, one day at a time. I would like to hear from you. If you feel comfortable, share something in the comments. Maybe a memory of someone you loved. Maybe something you learned from grief. Maybe just a sentence saying, "I'm still trying." Your words may help someone else feel less alone. If this story touched you, you can like this video and subscribe. Not for numbers or hype, but to stay connected as we talk about real lives, real love, and real strength. We're here to understand, to support, and to heal together.